and Governor Wolf's orders limiting indoor gatherings, in-person attendance for this meeting is being limited to a maximum of 25 people who will be observing social distancing. Additionally, based upon the order of the Secretary of Health regarding face coverings, all participants in the public meeting room are required to wear a face covering unless they fit in one of the order's exceptions. When speaking, while maintaining social distance, participants may remove their face covering. Therefore, this meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meetings by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Township is expecting to utilize this vehicle for all future public meetings during and after the COVID-19 crisis. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Will be posted on the front of the Township building. The Township will also be recording the meeting and making it available for viewing via the Township website and YouTube channel. While every effort will be made to ensure the live streaming and website are working, East Lampeter Township takes no responsibility for, cannot be held liable for the unavailability of live streaming in part or in full due to technical issues beyond its control. Live streams and recordings of all meetings remain the property of East Lampeter Township and are protected by copyright. Access to live streams and recordings of meetings is provided for personal and non-commercial use. Video, images, and audio must not be altered, reproduced, or republished without permission of East Lampeter Township. Joining the meeting via Zoom is Supervisor Ethan Denny, Supervisor David Buckwalter. Also in the room, we have, is John there yet? I can't see.
He's not.
No, okay. I believe Supervisor John Blowers will be joining the meeting, and I'll announce that when he comes in, or maybe have him announce it when he comes in if I don't see him. Also participating to support the board on the Zoom is Township Manager Ralph Hutchison. Also participating to support the board in the meeting room are Chief Police Steve Zerby, Charlie Thomas, Public Works Director, Tara Hitchens, Planning Director, and Kevin Hostetter, Finance Director. Thank you for joining us. So for those board members joining via Zoom, I just want to confirm that you can hear me and I can hear you. So Dave, if you just want to either give me a thumbs up, or actually I'd rather you say something.
I hear you well, Corey.
Awesome, great. And Ethan?
Coming in loud and clear.
Awesome, great. Okay, and just a few more words. It's suggested that all participants on Zoom mute their microphone during the meeting until they wish to speak, make a motion, or vote. All votes will be taken by roll call so they can be properly recorded. In order to accommodate public comments at this meeting, the Township will be accepting public comments in writing or via email. Instructions for the submission of public comments are available on the Township website. All those providing public comments will be required to provide their name and address in order for their comments to be read into the record. Inappropriate comments will not be read into the record. I want to remind everyone that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. We'll now proceed with the meeting agenda with a call to order and second, pledge to the flag. You join me for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
liberty,
with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And third on the agenda, we have public comment for non-agenda items only. Hush, am I looking to you or Tara to check for public comment?
I have none in the public comment inbox.
Okay. Sounds good. And I'm assuming I can only see 5 chairs, but I'm assuming there's no one else in the room from the public.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, next on the agenda is the 2021 budget workshop.
If it's okay with you, Corey, I just wanted to open up with a couple of things.
Sure.
We're not expecting the board to necessarily make any formal action, no votes at the workshop meeting, but rather generally to, give staff direction on the budget planning and preparation for the 2021 budget. We would be looking eventually for the board to authorize advertising of the budget at your November 16 meeting, and then have actual budget adoption at your December 21st meeting. So that's sort of the schedule that we're expecting for the budget preparation and action eventually. I did prepare a budget summary. I would have to say that it's somewhat incomplete. Staff met on Monday of this week and went over a variety of items and had discussions about what we thought would be best to include. So some changes were made at that time that couldn't actually be implemented and incorporated into the narrative. So I apologize for that. But we do expect that we'll continue to refine the budget. And again, based upon input and direction from the board, we expect there to be changes, and those revisions will be incorporated and so that it's ready for you to look at and be prepared to authorize advertising in November. So from there, however you want to proceed, if there are specific questions that board members want to open up with, that's fine. Or if you want us to start going down through what we see as sort of the major items.
I just want to make two comments. When I believe Supervisor John Blowers is here. If that's correct, good. You can hear me. Awesome. And yeah, I think this is now Ethan, our 7th budget that we've been through. And Dave and John and Glenn have been through this many a time. So one, very appreciative of the budget narrative. I did have a chance to go through it. Completely understand there's some, X's and Y's where there might be numbers in the future, but to me, very straightforward. I have very few questions, but I thought maybe why don't we just go through, have the team go through, the sections most appropriate to them, and let's have discussion where you need direction. That's what we're here for. Any other board members' comments?
For me.
Agreed.
Good.
Okay.
I guess I would maybe ask Kevin to provide a little bit of context on the general fund revenues and our status there. I did look at them briefly earlier today. Based upon, the estimates that Kevin was able to make for how 2020 was shaping up, it looks like what we estimated back in the spring as far as the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our revenues was pretty close. We weren't terribly far off on what we thought was going to happen to the revenues and what seems to actually be happening. I think we're a little bit hopeful that things will improve in 2021, but don't expect it to get back to 2019 levels next year. So, Kevin?
As far as the, you want a 2020 or 2021? Are you looking for 2020 or 2021 discussion?
I guess your estimates for 2021 would be helpful.
The 2021, the county provides a taxable assessed value amount that is down. We had just recently received decisions that I think Hutch had mentioned to you that there's approximately $29 million in reductions that property owners received through the appeal process. That is taken into account in our taxable assessment value. The big unknown is how much of the current billings will be collected, within the year, as opposed to going through the tax claims process. I estimated about 91% will be collected during the year, which is down from previous years, which was around 98%. The earned income tax collections, the Lancaster County Tax Collection Bureau provides us with estimated collections being higher than 2020, but still a big unknown, as coronavirus could impact those collections. I did increase the estimated admissions tax, amusement tax, in comparison to 2020, assuming that we get back to some normalcy, but not complete. Hopefully American Music Theater and Dutch Wonderland will have a fuller season than this year. Besides that, most of the other items I estimated to be similar to prior years, or into 2020. In the end, I think, as you can tell, I think our estimated revenue will be about what we're projecting to be this year. Not sure if you have any specific questions about any categories or. The real estate taxes and earned income taxes and the admissions tax are major pieces.
Mm-hmm. A quick question there, Kevin. The real estate transfer tax, how do you have that one? What's your numbers you're going off of to calculate what that's going to be, other than just close to this year?
Yeah, that's kind of what we assumed. Yeah, we don't really have anything to support why it is that number. There's kind of an estimate.
Kevin, just a question back on your original statement around the $30 million tax assessment reduction. Is that in addition to the 2018 that's mentioned in the draft, or is that an additional 30 million that was reduced just say in the last months, couple months or so?
Yeah, the 30 million is just actually, the decisions were just made within the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We were aware of it. The county had provided us with the values that the property owners were requesting.
Right. Yeah, I'm familiar with that list. Okay, got it. In the text it talked about $30 million from the 2018 Shops at Rockville. I was just wondering if this is just same 30 million or a different 30 million. So I'm familiar with that recent list. Yeah. Okay,
It's an additional 30.
understood. Board members, any other questions on the revenue side, at least on the larger revenue side? Missions tax, earned income tax, real
No,
estate tax transfer? Okay.
they're all good shots in the dark.
Hutch, one thing I didn't get a chance to talk to you about, didn't bring up at the Monday meeting, but it ties to other revenues. I read in the newspaper that Lancaster Township recently added another cable TV franchise. Is that, oh, I see you have that. I missed that. Okay. Yeah. Tell us a little more about that, what you know about that.
Yeah, I just heard about that at the last intermunicipal committee meeting. The township manager mentioned that to everybody while we were there. And it's his impression that this new entity will be reaching out to the other municipalities, especially in the metro area, to engage in discussions about a franchise agreement for their cable TV operations as well. My expectation is that, assuming that they do that and they come to East Lampeter for that purpose, that for the most part, it won't change anything about our cable TV franchise fee revenue, but it could provide a nice complement in competition to the current situation and might benefit the customers in the township. So that's about all I know about it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your thought on that. I mean, some of us had left Comcast because of their exorbitant fees and cut the cord, and some of those cutting the cord, those expenses have gone up. So there may be some folks that come back to cable TV if they have a reasonable rate. But yeah, overall, I think you're right. You'll have people switching from Comcast to a new provider, which will increase for us. Okay, good. My only other question, the school resource officer, I saw, again, read in the paper this morning, I think it was New Holland. They listed what they were paying for the school district out there. Paying New Holland Police Department for their school resource officer. Any chance that can be renegotiated, or is that how long is that agreement with the school district for?
I haven't looked at that agreement recently. I'd have to go back and check on the term. I think it's a rolling term that just renews itself. And I'm not sure if that's annually or some other period of time. But okay. We can certainly take a look at that. Any insight?
Yeah, the paper listed a pretty high rate, frankly, for an officer. So I'm assuming it includes benefits and other things. Just like, Upper Lake Hawk has been great in sharing and, the long-term expenses that we incur. So I don't have the paper. I think the newspaper's upstairs now. So, but it's in the municipal notes or school notes for their past meeting, I believe.
I don't know if Steve or Kevin could help with any information on what the current agreement is. I think they pretty much pay all the expenses for the time when the officer is at the school.
Okay.
But any clarification, Steve or Kevin?
My recollection was that it was based on a percentage. And I want to say it was 2/3 and 1/3.
Right,
one third borne by the township, 2/3 borne by the school district. But I could be off on that.
I believe that's correct. Yeah. I'd have to look at it again, but I think that's what it was, 65% or 2/3.
Yeah.
Corey, were you,
They're getting a good deal compared to what was in the newspaper, what I read. So, but we can, it's not clearly going to impact our budget in a big way, but it's just something to look at what others are paying for those services. I know it's a huge benefit for us to be in the school district, and clearly it's a huge benefit for them, for us to, to have an officer. Officer Walton does a great job, but, let's just make sure that we're completely covering all the expenses there. So, Dave,
Chairman
sorry.
Meyer, just for the record, I would support a discussion with the school district on that. And in particular, in that discussion, the thoughts and possibilities of adding another school resource officer to Conestoga Valley. The middle school generates as much, if not more, work than the high school, and the responsibilities there are enough to be shared by two people. But again, that could be, there'll be different players involved in that, and so I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think let's have that conversation, this year. I think that's like I said, it's an important role for the school district, important for us. Let's have the conversation. Thank you for bringing it up.
Corey, when you were talking about Garden Spot, were you indicating that Garden Spot's being charged quite a bit more than what we're charging?
Yeah.
Have we accounted for the legacy costs similar to what we do with in our contracts? That's part of the discussion, I guess.
Yeah, and that's where I was going. I mean, it looked like, and again, I read it very early this morning, and maybe Ethan's probably Googling it already, but I kind of recall it being in the high 80s, low 90s number. Yeah. Ethan, find it for me if you have access. But something in that range, which doesn't come close, I think, to a 1/3, 2/3 that we're doing. So, but we can do the math and we can have that conversation. I just wanted to bring it up because I read it in the newspaper.
And you believe everything you read in the paper, right?
No, we are being recorded, Mr. Blowers.
But just being honest.
Yeah, we can certainly take a look at it and have a discussion and make sure that we've got all of the ongoing and legacy type costs accounted for as well. So we'll include that in our list of tasks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
In terms of looking at the expenditures for the general fund, as is typical of our budget, a large percentage of the cost is for people. As a service organization that we are, our main cost driver is our people. And so we're always trying to be careful with what we're doing with staffing. We did include, and I asked for this to be included in the budget, both the addition of administrative assistant position to help primarily in the finance department, as well as the addition of a new position of assistant township manager. So those are the main staffing issues. I know that Chief put in for the addition of an officer really to deal with the transitional period at the end of 21, anticipating a retirement at that time, so that we can have some overlap and some training to make sure that the person taking over in that role is ready to go when the officer does depart. So I think for the most part, those are the only staffing issues that we included in the budget. Did I miss anything? Anybody?
No.
Okay. So, I do believe I provided the board members with a draft of a position description for the assistant manager role. And so, any discussions that you want to have about that or any of the other staffing, existing staffing or proposed staffing that the board members have, we can certainly have that discussion whenever you're ready.
There's another item, Ralph, in there for clerical wages. That's also an increase of 55,000, as well as assistant township manager. I don't know if that's a duplication or is that another position that we're adding?
That would have been for the administrative assistant position that I mentioned, in addition to the assistant manager role.
Yeah, just a quick question for the chief. When's our next state accreditation? What's our timeline? Is that every couple of years, right?
Every 3 years, and the next one would be in 2022.
Okay. And that coincides with the,
It would be in
Sorry.
June of 2022.
okay.
And your
And-
question?
Yeah, just I'm assuming the individual that works most on the accreditation will be retiring sometime around that time. Is that correct?
She is planning on her last working day to be before the Christmas holiday of 2021. She superannuates February 1st of 2022, and she will likely be using her accumulated vacation time over the month of January 2022 to take her to her superannuation date from just before Christmas.
Got it.
I am looking to move her replacement into her office with her in August of 2021.
Is
Makes sense.
this is an individual on staff, chief?
Correct.
Okay.
An existing officer in the patrol division. Correct. So where this boils down to the money in dollars and cents for the budget would be looking for permission from the board to hire in the last half of 2021 to pull somebody on to take the place of that patrol officer who will be leaving the street in August of 2021.
Mhm.
So I had Kevin put 3 months of salary, October, November, December, as a best guess personnel coverage there.
Mhm. Okay.
Thanks. That's helpful. The other question I had in that section is just related to the county drug task force. I haven't been staying up to speed recently on where the county is with that and where the DA's office is with that. I know last year it was based on a match, right? If we put in X, they put in a match to that. Anyone on this call, can anyone inform us on what's currently happening?
And what was the question, Corey?
The drug task force, the county drug task force funds that we've contributed, I think $1 per capita for the last long time, right?
Correct.
It looks like that the county commissioners and the DA are looking to come up with some sort of new funding of this. I believe based on the Word document, we have not budgeted dollars in this new fiscal year for a township contribution. So I'm just trying to understand if we know anything about where that is headed, and perhaps maybe we should be budgeting something if it isn't able to be worked out or changed by the DA and the county commissioners.
Is there staff, do you have knowledge as to where those discussions are going that you did not choose to budget for that item?
I don't have any new insight. I know that the DA put out a document with a very thorough analysis of funding for the drug task force and comparison to how other counties fund their drug task forces. But it didn't really have any proposal or specifics on what a new funding arrangement would look like. The other thing I would say is that I'm aware of quite a number of municipalities in the county that have decided to discontinue their funding, their per capita funding of the task force for next year. Some of them had done it even for 2020. And I do expect that to be almost uniform going forward for municipalities in the county.
The understanding that I have, which is several weeks old, was that there was still no ask coming from the county of the taxpayers to implement some sort of a county-wide funding stream or a dedicated funding source. But that's been several weeks. I did just see in the paper, which once again, I believe everything I read in the paper. So I did see something about another municipality that hadn't contributed before was stepping up and making a contribution. I forget who that was, Ralph. I don't know if anyone else saw that or not.
I did see it. I just can't recall who it was. Yeah, I saw it in Sunday's paper.
Could have been Wes Lampeter. I forget who that was, Corey. That's where I saw it too. So I have no knowledge at this point that the county's position has changed on this.
My understanding is that while a change in the funding model for the drug task force is a prominent topic of discussion, that there hasn't been anything that has been floated out to the general public for us to make some kind of an educated decision on this topic. The current funding model, which you gentlemen know is 20 years old, is $1 per capita. And you're also probably aware that while East Lampeter and several other municipalities have made that funding contribution historically every year, there are those that did not or did so sporadically or did so at some other level beyond the $1 per capita ask. So it's absolutely up in the air at this point as far as what we know.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would add is that, in my view, the drug task force is a really important law enforcement tool for the county to have. And I do hope that some funding mechanism is arrived at to keep it going and make it successful.
Yeah, when I read the district attorney's report, I would say I fully agree with her findings that the current funding mechanism is not sustainable, which is voluntary contributions from municipalities, which is what you're seeing right now. You're seeing both a lack of cooperation historically, but also a pandemic creating a double whammy of municipalities who are trying to get through a budget cycle. They're cutting voluntary contributions. And I know in the past, we used to also have the DA come out to our meetings and talk to us about this. I don't think we've had anyone reach out from the county in the last year to come talk to us at a meeting. So from where I sit, I think going along with where the other sort of metro area municipalities are going, which is saying someone has to take some action. And I think the municipalities are going to go first and say, we're not going to fund this. It should be funded at the county level. And then the county has to at least talk to us to hopefully to get the conversation going. But I think if we just keep funding it, they're going to keep doing what they're doing and not take any action. So I think the budget as proposed that eliminates that voluntary contribution jumpstarts the conversation and forces the conversation to happen.
Sorry, Dave, any comments?
Well, I have nothing to add.
Okay.
I agree with Ethan.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to have a conversation with the county. I want the drug task force to continue. I also don't want to have a conversation happen. They bill us for X or Y and we don't have it in the budget. However, I doubt it's going to be more than 17,000, right? So I don't think it's if they do bill us, or we do come to some sort of, the county comes to some sort of, answer for this funding issue, and we do have to put money up, it's not going to be a huge impact. Okay, good. I just wanted to get that conversation out. I appreciate all the input. I think any other questions to staff about the police department, the CSAs, the additional officer, the administrative assistant on the finance side, or the assistant township manager position? Okay, let's sorry, John, were you going to say something?
Nope, I just said none.
Okay, great. Let's continue.
Okay. Since you started talking about some of the contributions, that was an area that I wanted to make sure we touched on. We have contributions in there for LEMSA. Again, we kept the proposed level at the same level as 20. Same thing for the libraries and the contributions there. We kept those, that level of contribution the same. The two larger, they're not really separate organizations. They're really internal contributions, but they're larger that I want to make sure we had some conversation about was planned transfers from the general fund to our OPEB, our post-retirement funding for health coverage, and the contribution to help fund future fire apparatus purchases. We proposed in the draft budget to not make those transfers next year, which is what we did for this year. Well, now my look at is first speaking about the post-retirement health coverage. We've got over $2 million fund balance in that fund right now. And we have no officers who are currently on the health plan, and not expecting to have any on the health plan next year. So I do feel that that's, although it's not what the actuary would say is fully funded, it's very well funded, and I don't think we need to make that contribution next year. Regarding the fire apparatus, we do have the planned Lafayette Fire Company truck plan to come out of that fund next year. And even with that expenditure next year, we're still going to have a pretty healthy balance in there. Going forward, the next piece of apparatus that's to be funded would be in 2023. And so we've got at least 2 additional budget cycles to hopefully be able to, return to the funding that we had been doing. Now there's still enough money in there even after the 21 purchase to make the 23 purchase as well. Now they haven't gone through the specs and pricing or anything, but based upon what we've seen with the apparatus to date, there should be enough money in there already to fund that purchase. So after that, we're looking at even farther out and having another couple of budget cycles to make sure we've got funding for the apparatus after that. So that was our thinking, or at least my thinking, on why we proposed what we proposed there. But those are they had been bigger contributions, $200,000 a year that we had been doing. So I wanted to make sure that the board, was aware and or gave us direction to do something different if appropriate.
I've no issues with that. Any other board members have any questions or concerns?
No, no, as long as you're confident that the two budget cycles between now and or 2021 and 2023 can keep us on track. I think we've done a great job of planning for and providing funds and having those funds available and don't want to lose sight of that. So I trust that you're making that judgment here, Ralph.
Yeah, and that 2023, is that the Bird in Hand one that was moved out because they weren't ready?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
I guess the next suggestion I would make would be that we, just have the department heads talk about, what they've got included as far as some of the more significant items in their budgets. And I guess I'd start with Chief Zerby to talk about the things in the general fund as well as the things in the forfeiture fund that are planned for next year.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned earlier, Hutch, personnel drive the largest part of the budget. So those numbers are controlled by a contract. However, you will see that some of the requested expenditures for salaries are lower than the previous year, and I have consulted with Kevin about that, and that is due to the 27 pays that took place in 2020 or will be taking place versus the 26 taking place in 2021. So it looks like there might have been a decrease for some, but that's not really the case in terms of what people are taking home. Overtime is being asked to be kept the same as it was last year at 250,000. I had really the best intentions and believed that we could get through 2020 staying under that, and I'm still hopeful that we will be able to, but we had two very large cases this year, which we took a gut punch, but I still think we're going to come in under, so or at least right on the border. So I think we can keep that number the same, and I'm hoping for 2021 to come in under that as well. Moving along, some of the other larger items that are typically in the police budget are vehicles. Annually, we typically ask for the purchase of either 3 or 4 vehicles. It flip-flops back and forth depending on mileage most of the time. We're asking for 3, 2 of them marked, 1 of them unmarked, 1 marked SUV, 1 marked car, and 1 unmarked car. And all 3 will be patrol vehicles, including the unmarked, which an unmarked patrol vehicle for primarily traffic enforcement purposes. And then we'll have 3 trades in that deal, 2 2017 Dodges, both currently in the 90,000 mile range, and a 2007 Chevy Tahoe, which was a drug asset seizure vehicle back in 2017. We've got about 3.5 years worth of use out of it. It's got 180,000 miles on it. So it's, I think, time for it to move along. And we're going to rotate the current street supervisor vehicle, which is also a Tahoe, into the detective division. So they're getting the same size vehicle, just not a new vehicle. And the patrol supervisor is getting a slightly smaller SUV, which they'll be fine with. There is a 4th vehicle in there. However, that's falling under a Fund 4 request. That's a growth, that would be a growth vehicle. I'm thinking of a Ford F-150 truck. Then its primary use would be MXAP enforcement. As you're aware, we have our MXAP officer back up and running. And so as we get through shifts in personnel, I'm hoping to have that officer on a individualized rotation where he can make the most use of his time enforcing commercial vehicle laws out on, primarily on Route 30 and or up on Route 23. That truck would be used for that purpose 9 times out of 10. The other advantage of having a pickup truck in the fleet is there are a few times every year where we have a large piece of equipment or a large piece of evidence, something that we have to move around, and it's nice to be able to have that at our disposal. Find my notes. Bear with me a minute, gentlemen.
Take your time.
Yes, did somebody have a question?
No, I said take your time. Take your time.
I think the other heavy hitters in my budget are pretty much computer licensing, computer hardware, things of those nature. I rely heavily on our IT person who also meets with Kevin individually in this whole process as far as coming up with those numbers and them being justified and accurate. And I think you'll find most of the other numbers and most of the other budget categories are either at the same level, lower than last year's level, or maybe a little bit above last year's level. But unless you see something in there that you have questions about, I think almost every category, over half anyway, are coming in at lower levels than last year, and or right about the same level. There's a couple that are higher, but they're minimal.
I had a couple of quick questions, and they may be just things got moved to a different account number. But I know looks like legal services is a pretty big jump from 2,000 to 11,000. That's also one that historically sort of goes up and down depending on what's going on. So
So there was, I believe, 11,000 in that account last year, of which 2,000 has been estimated to be used. And yes, the long and short of that is whether we have something transpire within the police department where we have to lean on legal services. There's many years that go by where, like this year, that number will be low, and then there'll be an occasional year where that number won't be adequate. So I think 11,000, 10,000 has been in there for the past 4 budget cycles.
mm-hmm.
I would add that we are going to be negotiating a new agreement next year with the association, and that typically does involve some assistance from legal services.
Another large item in there with bulletproof vests from previous years. And the reason why the number is big is we went from a 7-year rotation of vest replacement to a 5-year rotation vest replacement. We did this quite a few years ago based on manufacturer recommendations. And it just so happens that 2021 is the year where we have the largest number of vests being replaced. And then we'll come down off of that number over the next 4 years of budgets. It slowly reduces, and then we'll have another big one again. So that's why that number is large. Some Fund 4 items that I'd like to go over. You'll see $18,000 and change in there for civil disturbance gear. As you gentlemen are aware, we got called out into the city on 3 different occasions this year. And the long and short of our civil disturbance gear situation right now is we have a collection of helmets and a collection of shields and some batons. And while the batons and the shields are interchangeable no matter who has them, the helmets are specific fit. So we've sent all of our officers now to civil disturbance training with the state police. And the one thing that everybody came back saying was, I could barely participate because my helmet kept sliding forward, or my helmet didn't want to stay on, or I couldn't get a good fit with the gas mask because of the ill-fitting helmet. And the bottom line is that, we're all differently made. And so I need to distribute the equipment that we do have to those people that it fits appropriately, and then buy specific fit items for the rest of the agency. We haven't bought this equipment in many years, so this would be a Fund 4 purchase, an applicable Fund 4 purchase. Another item coming out of Fund 4 is the proposed campus improvement expansion of our impound yard. There's $60,000 in there. That was a project that we started talking about in 2020, and it just hasn't come to fruition, so it's basically a carryover. Hoping to accomplish that. The fourth truck that I mentioned earlier is in there as well. And there is, there's some
Cameras?
body cameras, yes. So thanks for bringing that up. We are involved with 4 other police departments with a collective grant application to both the feds as well as the state, seeking half of our layout for a body camera program. So body cameras for East Lampeter, to get that program off the ground and sustain us for approximately 5 years, is $100,000. Because the grant cannot exceed $200,000, we're hopeful to get just over $40,000 in grant funds if we get approved, and that would be in early 2021. So then there'd be an approximate $60,000 balance that we would be responsible for, again, out of Fund 4. That would give us body cameras for all officers working and provide for the storage. It's a no-fault replacement for 5 years, and it would cover a good portion of our licensing fees as well.
Chief, the last year for the 38th officer, we used forfeiture funds for 1 year, which I think is all we're allowed to use. For that replacement position for the accreditation officer, could those funds potentially come out of forfeiture if there was enough money in there to cover the first year of salary? Is that possible?
They cannot. The rules on salary usage for forfeiture is person for person. So we only have one detective working for the DEA. And so we can only do one replacement. And that replacement was the 2020 to 2021 budget year. So we can't do another one without sending somebody else into the DEA to work.
Okay. Thank you.
And just for the record, that wraps up in the end of March 2021. So April through the end of the year then would be borne by the general fund for that officer.
Got it. Yep. Thank you.
There are other questions?
It's in there, but it's in a couple other places. I'm looking at our sort of insurance costs. So whether it's health insurance is definitely one, and then but vehicle insurance and also general liability seems to be moving up.
Kevin, you had a comment regarding the health insurance, I believe, when we...
Right, when I had budgeted last year, the Benecon or the IIC had given some revised numbers, and I used old numbers and hadn't updated. So budget from last year to this year is up more than what our actual increase is projected to be. I think the projected increase in health is 1.7%. But since I used wrong numbers, lower numbers, it makes that increase look larger.
Yeah,
And
I had asked the same question, Ethan, and I think we're going to have to review that because
Yeah.
the
That does
Shown.
make a whole lot of sense.
amount that's shown as estimate for the end of the year, would make it appear to me as well that, there's something else happening there. So we'll review that carefully again.
Yeah, because I can see some of that from the old appropriated amounts, but I'm just looking mainly at the estimated full year versus requested amount and seeing big jumps in that. But then when you look back historically, it's not as, yeah, so I'd just be worth reviewing because that's one of the bigger drivers, both in the administration as well as the police force. There's some jumps in there. But then the other insurances don't have those necessarily, like your vision and dental.
Right. The vision and dental are different programs, and so that they have different changes. But yeah, we'll take another careful look at the health cost.
Any other questions for Chief Zerby regarding police? Okay, thank you, sir. Hutch, who's next?
I guess we'll make Tara next to basically talk about the various planning efforts that we have ongoing.
Okay, so the overall zoning budget does not have any significant increases in it from 2020 to 2021. We still have the Bridgeport study ongoing, and that study is currently on hold as we're trying to determine a best method for a public open house option, and that was left to the consultant to determine and to keep it within the budget that remains for the project. We have the Route 340 corridor study continuing, and we have efforts from Lancaster County Planning Commission along with Salisbury and Lake Buck Townships on that project. We have, after updating the zoning ordinance for a number of years now, I've started the undertaking of the subdivision and land development ordinance. So that will continue through 2021, but that will be in-house. Originally, we had consultant monies set into the 2020 budget that was taken out of the 2020 budget and not provided for in the 2021 budget, so we will complete that in-house. I'm going to move to stormwater unless you have any questions on the zoning portion.
I think you can continue.
Okay, the stormwater fund, the 07 fund, we have moved a number of items into the 07 fund. The first is spill control material, which was originally in the fire fund. And that is to support the fire companies as a reimbursement method for spill control materials as they go to various events. The other is stormwater pipes, basin, and operating supplies, and relining and replacing. That was previously in the roads budget, the 436 budget. And that is now in the stormwater fund, the 07 fund. As you're aware, we hired a stormwater coordinator this year. So he is moving forward with looking at PRP projects, and that brings me to the PRP projects. So we will need to have a line item under the engineering, the 446-313-002. We had 50,000 in there originally in the budget. We're looking at increasing that to 100,000 so that we can get some projects engineered in 2021 and be able to have them constructed and in the ground by 2023 when our permit ends, so that we can take credit for them in this permit cycle and meet our obligations. Under professional services, 446-310, I apologize for going slightly out of order. The stormwater pipe investigation, that is actually CCTVing the stormwater pipes throughout the township. We originally looked at $40,000 for that in 2021. After talking with a consulting group organization that does that type of work, the cost is approximately $210 per hour. And they believe they could really get a number of linear feet completed every year for the next 3 to 4 years if we can actually budget $100,000 for that per year. The PRP projects that we will look at is 07446-374. We originally had 250,000 in here for the PRP construction. We are hoping to apply to the Exelon funds that the Conservation District will have opening in December for Community Park. That is, we're looking at just our side for a stream bank restoration. That's approximately 746 linear feet of stream bank restoration. The cost for that is $160,000. We are beginning to have discussions with Dutch Wonderland and with the adjoining farmer, Plainsack farmer, to attempt to increase the linear feet on both sides of the stream for that project to increase our benefits and reductions. The other item that we moved from the 471 is the sweeper, the street sweeper. This is our last payment in 2021, and that's a $53,000 payment that will come out of the sewer fund instead of the highway aid fund, because the sole purpose is for the stormwater. We still have the Greenfield Road at Amtrak project that we're moving forward through, as you're all aware. We are uncertain if Rosewood Terrace project will move forward. As you know, we did not receive the grant funds for that because we could not get the landowner to actually sign a letter. They gave us a verbal agreement only at the time. So we will continue to work to see if the landowner will sign a letter of agreement with the township so that we can have a PRP project in that large basin along Old Philadelphia Pike and then up through the swale that extends to Eastland. But we are also looking at a project from Greenfield Road down to Eastland. There's some severe gutting that's going on in the backyards of property owners there. We have 4 property owners that are on board with moving forward with that project, and we need to discuss the project with 2 others. I think those are the major items.
The only thing I wanted to just add, and I know the board's aware of this, just wanted to clarify that we wanted to make sure, the board was fully aware of what was planned in the stormwater fund, but that budget in particular will actually be adopted by the sewer authority since the system was transferred to them. It's now them to budget for it. So I know you're aware of that, but I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Any questions for Tara?
One minor item that I should have pointed out is a $5,000 reduction in the budget for the Lancaster Farmland Trust. We originally had contracted with them to provide ag E&S plans or conservation plans with our farmers here in the township. We've taken that money out of the budget at this point. It's my understanding LFT has no new farmers that are willing or able to join that effort. In addition, our stormwater credit allows for a credit once you have that plan, whether it's a new plan or an old plan, but it has to be implemented. So it seemed like double dipping for the farmers.
Thank you. Okay, Touch.
Okay, I guess Charlie is there. We'll move on to Charlie.
Thanks. Biggest purchase that we're looking at this year will be split between the three departments, between the road, sewer, and the parks. Our chipper needs replaced. It's a 1998 model. It's a 17-inch. You can take a 17-inch dog. We're looking to upgrade to a 19-inch. That cost is $106,000. Split between three would be $35,000, no over $35,000 in each department, which was a benefit for clearing right-of-ways in the sewers, of course, the roads with the trees and the parks. If you remember years ago, we've got the leaf scorch disease that we're taking down about 7 oak trees a year. We're running out of time with this other one. It's hard to get parts anymore, the wear and tear on it. So that we're asking for that would be the biggest thing. We did move some stuff around, as Tara stated. The sweeper payment would move over to storm sewer, which would free up money in liquid fuels for the crack sealer. Ours caught on fire last year, so it's on its last leg. We did repair it. We made it get through this past year, but that was right around $26,000, I think. But that would be coming out of liquid fuels. Jumping around a bunch here, like I said, all three departments. One thing with the sewer, if Devon Creek does get going, we'll be down some monies in the tapping fees due to them building our pump station in the phase 1. So we'll be able to charge for the treatment capacity, but not the transportation. We also moved some anti-skid line painting out of general to liquid fuels to free up more money in general. Second here. With the liquid fuels funding, we're paving, I'm going to call it the Zook's Corner area in the northern end of the township, plus Willow Acres behind Chick-fil-A. We're looking at paving wise in the 240,000 range. We did set aside 94,000 for double oil and chip, but if we would take that money and move it over into the maintenance of the paving, we may be able to do the whole development of Willow Acres. We were going to piecemeal it out like we did behind Easttown Mall. But if we stay away from a double oil and chip year, which we're still investigating our roads, we might be able to just transfer that money right over to the road maintenance. So that would put us over the 300,000, all out of liquid fuels money. Basically, there are big purchases and jobs.
I guess the other thing that I forgot to mention when I mentioned the staffing issue is we had, prior to 20, had seasonal staff doing the grass cutting in our parks and around the property. And we didn't do that this year, and we're not planning to do that again next year. So our full-time public works staff has picked up that responsibility, and we're going to continue that through next year.
And Charlie, they're doing an awesome job.
Thanks.
I mean, I walk through Lafayette, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a day these days, taking my dog for a walk, and they're always out there. I just saw them spraying last week, they put some signs up and sprayed, and the grass looks great.
Yeah, we did cut back on spraying this year due to COVID. With budget wise, we did cut back on a lot of spraying this year. We did bump it back into the budget this year to try to get caught up before the park maintenance guys lose the ground.
Charlie, while I have you here in front of us, how's the spotter lanternfly situation going? I know Florida Park was a target last year. You guys had, bait trees, whatever you call those. You guys did a lot of clearing. Any improvement from that? Was it helpful? Or?
They are congregating into those bait trees now, which we were supplied. We had to purchase chemicals, which Penn State and USDA gave us ideas of what to do to treat these bait trees. And once they found we did do it, according to what their recommendations, we were reimbursed a portion of that money back. They're everywhere. It's bad. We don't have enough bait trees, I should say.
Yeah, yeah. They're in my yard, the bait trees.
Yeah, but yeah, we're doing everything USDA and Penn State is having us do and helping out where needed.
I hate to lose a lot of the trees in our parks. It's
Yeah.
expensive. That's on next. Okay, thank you.
Charlie, what's an example? Oh, sorry, how'd you go?
We had sort of late in the year become aware of what the County Conservation District was doing with some programs there. So we're going to be looking at whether or not we can work with them to offer those sorts of services to some of our residents that are looking for solutions, or at least some ways to deal with the spotted lanternfly problem. So we'll be talking with them early next year about that.
I answered my question. I found it in the budget. It's just a question about the chipper and I'm good.
I guess the other thing I wanted to mention was and this is a responsibility of the Industrial Commercial Development Authority, but we did include in the budget for the TIF, the Tax Increment Financing Fund, funding for the effort to pay for consulting services to develop a brand for the Lincoln Highway corridor and designs for a gateway signage and wayfinding signage program out there next year. So our hope is that we can get those things completed and to incorporate the gateway signage into both the Western Gateway project as well as the intersection project at 896 with PennDOT and work together with them to get those in place. We also included some funding in there to help us with costs with the development of business improvement district for the corridor. We again had hoped to do that in prior years and this year included, and just hadn't been able to get to that for a variety of reasons. So that would also come out of the TIF fund, and well, we'll be looking for the authority to take action on that. I guess the the final, I guess, sort of piece of direction that I'd be looking for from the board would be, to recognize that even with what we've done in the general fund, there's still a significant deficit spending anticipated in 21 per the draft budget that we've provided to you. So I think, in that range of around $500,000 that I think we're going to be at, I think that's manageable. It still leaves us with fund balance that meets the policy direction of the board for how much we should carry over from year to year. And I think we'd still be in a solid position going into 22 for that budgeting challenge that we'll have then. But, if there's, I don't want to say comfort level, that I don't know that there's ever comfort with that, but if the board's satisfied with that or wants us to try to do more to get that number to be lower, we need to know that.
Yeah. Board members? Ethan?
Yeah, my thought at this point, I'd like to give a little more thought to it. And we have a little bit of time too, but with the amount of uncertainty that we have going into 2021, it would be nice to see if we could at least get 1 quarter in before we add any new positions. So if there's a way to even push back some of those and say, all right, let's get a quarter under our belt. It really depends on, our admissions tax is going to depend a lot on how the economy is doing, whether there's a vaccine. Some of our other earned income taxes and local services taxes are going to depend on, who wins in November and what kind of bailouts are proposed to happen in 2020. So I think it'd be wise to at least get through, keep sort of the budget as sort of proposed, but relook at it in that first quarter and say, all right, if we're trending towards a more deeper recession, we look at delaying some of these things again. Or if we start to recover a little bit, or if there's, we're looking at the hospitality industry and the tourism industry. If there's bailouts proposed to those industries, it changes things versus if there's not. So I'd like to get into 2021 and then maybe do a revisit sort of in that March, April timeframe would be, give us more information to be able to say, all right, similar to what we did this year, we had a budget and something, and conditions on the ground change and we adapted very quickly and very well. So I think we could do the same. So I think this is a good budget based off of where we know, because if the economy starts to rebound, then we have the revenue to cover that. Like John said, some of these estimates on revenue are a big shot in the dark. You could have a lot of real estate change hands very quickly if things change, even for the worse for some of these industries. So it really is a big unknown until we start to get into 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would concur. I would concur. I think the way that you guys ran the budget this year was a model I would utilize going into this next year, for all the reasons that Ethan just said. We may see our hospitality and our visitor economy lags significantly into next year, which a couple of these line items are certainly dependent upon that employment and those admission dollars and fees coming in. So I would say let's replicate the same decision making going into this next year that we had for this year, and if that requires holding things in stasis through Q1, and then pivoting in Q2, either back onto budget or slightly away from budget, I think would be my preferred approach and my recommended approach.
Dave?
No, I agree with what's been said. We didn't anticipate the pandemic, and we responded to it. And I think our staff deserves a lot of credit for their approach. So who knows what's going to happen next year, but got a good team to tackle it. And I think Ethan's comments about revisiting this in March, April, right thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with all the comments said. I mean, I think, again, we did it last year. The CSA positions and the police budget were a great example of that, right? We, approved it in the budget, but again, didn't fill those positions. So communication's the best medicine, right? So we'll continue to, hopefully, my thought is let's get the budget out there for public viewing and, advertise it, and we can always reopen the budget, and we can always make good business decisions every day of the year. And that's what you guys do every single day for the last 20 something years. So, So again, great work. Great explanation. Anything else, Hutch, that we can help with or give direction on?
No, I think we hit all the major things that I want to make sure we touched on. We will be making some additional revisions from what you have right now, and we'll try to outline those so that it's clear as to what you'd be advertising at the November meeting. I guess the only other thing I would say, if you felt you needed another workshop time before we got to the 16th of November, we could try to do that if you'd like, but if not, that's fine. We'll outline what we've got finished by the 16th.
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, unless there's, substantial changes to, or things that we did not discuss in this public session. I think we're all knowledgeable enough that we can, have that discussion at the November meeting, and I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
By the way, I think the technology works. Yeah, I don't think so. Any other questions from board members?
Corey, just a point of commendation, I guess, for Ralph to begin to put in place some plans for his succession. We've all talked about this in one way or another, and have anticipated this, but I think it's shows Ralph's professional maturity and his understanding of this department and this township and what the role takes, and I just really appreciate this, and I think all of us on the board, who have been around, some involved in the township for 20 years and others, for maybe a little less than that, need to recognize that, the next 3 to 5 years or so are so critically important for keeping this township, this community on track. And I really appreciate that, Ralph, and look forward to continuing to implement this and move forward with it.
Thank you, John, for those comments. I just said thank you. Okay, we have 5 no other business, I'm assuming. Okay. Did any other public comment come in at any time?
They did not.
Okay. Thank you, Tara. Okay. I just want to say thanks to the board members and staff for joining us this evening, and thanks for putting the information together. Very helpful as always. Technology worked great, so thank you for that. And I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by John Blowers, second by Dave. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. John.
Aye.
Ethan.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
And Corey, aye. Motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Hope you feel better, Hutch.
Thank you.